I was away for 2 weeks. When I came back, my neighbor stopped me at the gate. She said a phrase I'll never forget. "Emma, there was screaming from your house. At night. We were frightened." She looked at me like I was guilty. I nodded silently, thanked her, walked into the house. The door was locked. The lock was intact. The windows were closed. The order seemed normal, but there was something foreign in the air. Like someone had been eating in silence while I was gone. There was a cup in the kitchen, with a fingerprint. Not mine. In the bedroom, the plaid had been thrown down. I didn't leave it like that. Fingerprints on the windowsill. In the fridge, the milk I didn't drink is gone. Only my parents had keys. I never made copies. No one. I silently packed my bag and drove to the hardware store. I bought a set of hidden cameras. Small ones. Simple. I installed them myself. In the living room. On the stairs. In the bedroom under the eaves. Didn't tell anyone. Copied it to an external drive. She left again. Officially a business trip. In reality, to see who was in my house. Everything I saw next was without sound. Just images. Day 1 empty. Day 2 shadows. Day 3 my mother. She came in as if she'd always lived here. She sat in the chair. Looked around. Opened my refrigerator. Took some food. Then she called someone. She smiled. A day later my dad showed up. With bags. He went upstairs. The camera showed him lying on my bed. No hesitation. He slept there all night. I watched it on my laptop at the hotel. I didn't cry. Just watched. Day 6 strange man. No relation. Came in with my mother. They hugged. I rewound it. Then again. He took too long. In the video, he's in my bedroom, drinking coffee from my cup. My mom stayed the night. I saw her take a blanket out of the closet. It's labeled Emma. Guest linen. The one I was saving. I rewound it again. I did it again. Then I turned it off. I sat down. Poured myself a cup of tea. My hands were shaking, but not with resentment, with clarity. On the 7th day, I went to the station. Not to complain. With a question. What do you do if someone is a stranger in your house and your family has given them access? The cop shrugged. Said nothing without a report. I didn't write. I waited. Until I saw 4 people walk into my house. Laughing. Screaming. Someone slammed doors. Someone poured beer on the floor. I pressed record. I saved the file. Emailed it to myself. Then emailed it to legal. Then back to the bank. I didn't call them. I didn't write. I just watched. And I waited. I knew it would get worse. But I wasn't afraid anymore. On the 9th day, my mother cleaned the kitchen. She wore gloves. The camera caught her cleaning the stove. Then she takes my papers off the table. She unfolds them. She reads it. She laughs. She calls someone again. I slowed down the video. She says, "She won't understand anything anyway." Always been naive. I didn't react. I opened a new file and started writing down everything I saw. Daytime actions. A fixation. No emotion. Like a report. I wasn't going to beg or plead. I was fixing. On the 10th day, a man showed up with a box. He took out some of my books. My mother opened the door for him. She did. Stood by while he put my stuff in the trunk. Didn't stop him. The camera shows her nodding. She doesn't need that. The bedroom was a mess. Someone had gone through the clothes. In the closet, one of the shelves was empty. Under the mattress, someone else's cigarettes. I never smoked. The window was ajar. I stared at it and felt everything inside clench. Not from anger. From clarity. They're not there temporarily. They're settling in. I didn't call again. I just set the second flash drive to record. Then I ordered delivery with the new alarm system. Through a third party. I scheduled the installation for the end of the month. I'm the only one who gets notified. My parents didn't know about it. Not yet. On the 11th day, my mother threw out my magazine. It was an old issue, a subscription. The camera caught her tearing it apart. She's laughing. She says something to my father. He nods. Smiles. We should have occupied this house sooner. I read my lips. I took a still image. I printed it out. I put it in a folder. I put the bank statement, copies of correspondence with the bank, a check for the cameras. I started compiling a dossier, not because I wanted to sue, just to make sure it wasn't a dream. On the 13th day, the neighbor came by. The same one who said she was yelling. My mother opened the door for her. They talked for a long time. Then the mother took out a photo album. An old one. A family one. They laughed. The neighbor is flipping through it, pointing with her finger. The mother explained something, waving her hand toward the camera. Yeah, it's all hers. I read her lips. I turn off the laptop. I go to wash my face. The cold water didn't help. I booked a ride home on the 17th day. No notifications. No conversations. Just a ticket. The cameras kept recording. On the 15th day, a party. At the house. 5 people. One with a beer in his hand sat in my chair. Another was flirting with my mother. She didn't mind. One of them put on some music. Loud. So loud that the camera almost shook with the bass. Someone popped the champagne. The spray hit the screen. Laughing. Dancing. Then my mother opens my closet, pulls out my skirt. She hands it to a guest. She puts it on. It's okay, she won't notice. I hear her lips. I closed my laptop. Sat down. For a long time. Didn't think. Just sat there. Then I pulled out the folder. I double-checked the copies. Checked the lock on the suitcase. Canceled the food delivery. It had to be exact. No chance of coincidence. When I left the hotel for the airport, it was quiet. No one had called. No text messages. No, how are you doing? Just me. With a suitcase and a copied recording of my parents turning my house into a communal apartment for their acquaintances. They didn't know I was coming back. And it was the right thing to do. I didn't sleep on the plane. I didn't read. I didn't look out the window. I just kept my backpack at my feet and felt each frame from my camera slowly settling inside. When the wheels touched the ground, I pulled out my phone. Logged into the camera app. The last shots are of my mother in my robe. She steps out onto the porch. Smoking. The gates open. Someone waves at her from the car. She waves back. Calmly. Confident. Like a hostess. I turned off the screen. I didn't need to see more. Passport control, no one asked any questions. I walked through without turning around. Took a cab. Gave the address. No excitement. No anger. Just steady breathing. I knew what would be behind that door. And I knew they wouldn't wait for me. They're sure they have everything under control. But I was no longer the same person I'd left 2 weeks ago. What happened next changed everything. Subscribe and stay, you won't want to miss how it unfolded. When the car stopped at the curb, I saw at once. The gate was open. The garbage can was right in front of the entrance. The lid was not closed. The house looked like a cheap hotel, not from the facade, but from the feel of it. I pressed the camera button on my phone. The latest footage was the mother on the porch. Smoking, smiling. Behind her, someone slams the door. You can hear it, but you can't see it. I went up the steps. I had the key. Put it in the lock. Checked it. It worked. They didn't change it. So they didn't think I was coming. When I came in, my mother was standing in the hallway, wearing my robe, cup in hand. She didn't turn around. She just said, "You could have warned me." "I didn't want to intrude," I replied. We stood a meter away from each other. Shoe prints on the floor. Someone else's backpack against the wall. I saw a guy in his 20s come down the stairs quickly. He didn't even say hello. Just walked past me like I was furniture. Dad was in the kitchen, sitting there with a newspaper as always. Only it wasn't his. It was mine. The one I thought my mother had torn up. I guess she changed her mind. "We, just lived," he said. I nodded. I could see that. No one asked how I'd gotten here. Didn't offer me water. Didn't say, "We'll be leaving." I walked past, went up to the second floor. The bedroom was different. The bed was someone else's. The blanket was in colors I'd never had before. Makeup on the dresser. Not mine. I opened the closet. Half the hangers are filled with other people's stuff. In the bathroom, a razor, a toothbrush, a bottle. Under the sink, 2 strangers' towels. All neatly folded. Not a mess. They really lived here. I went back downstairs. My mom was cleaning a cup. "Who's that guy?" I asked. "A friend's son." We let him in for a couple days. He's in trouble. You've always been helpful. Yes, but not to people who live in my house without asking. Mom didn't say anything. Dad was staring at the paper. I went into the living room. There was a sofa I hadn't bought. A coffee table made of cheap plastic. The flowers in the vase were artificial. Everything screamed, "This is not your home." I sat down. I took out a folder. I put it on the table. A security man is coming in 3 days. They'll install an alarm system. I'll be the only one with access. You have to move out by then. The mother stood at the door. She didn't move. We thought you'd be away longer. We don't have a place. You have a place. You have a house. You chose mine. Father was still silent. Mother turned away. We're your parents, Emma. Does it matter? Not anymore, I said. Only one thing matters now. You've trespassed. And you're not getting in anymore. She wanted to say something, but I stood up. Until Monday, I repeated. Then the locks will change. I went upstairs. I closed the bedroom door. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. I could hear someone walking around downstairs in the house. Heavy footsteps. Not my father's. Not my mother's. Someone third. The same guy. He was on the phone. Loudly. Uninhibited. Laughing. An hour later I heard the front door slam. The cell window blinked movement. I checked it out. The guy was gone. Followed by another man. I didn't know him. There's a mother walking them out. She's holding containers. Probably food. They weren't afraid of the camera. Or they didn't know it was working. I went outside. Right into the garden. I looked at the flower bed I'd planted 3 years ago. There were plastic pots there. I didn't put them in. Replaced the roses with something cheap. Comfortable. Ever blooming. Like their excuses. Back in the house I sat down in the living room again. Who else was here? I asked. Emma, we don't have to report, my mother said. We already do. She pressed her lips together. You saw everything, didn't you? Watching us like a parole officer? I watched you take my life apart. Like a supermarket box. Mother turned away. That's cruel. You've always been cold. I just don't lie to myself anymore, I replied. And I'm not going to lie to you. She wanted to say something about family again, but I stood up. I'm going back on Monday with the papers. You have to leave. Dad stood up. Walked over. And if we don't leave? What will you do? Call the police? No, I said. I'll just turn off the lights, water, gas. And I'll leave the camera on. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, You're not the same person anymore. I nodded. That's right. They understood. Not right away. Not loudly. But they understood. The next morning, the mother was cleaning the kitchen. She was quiet. I watched her put her things in a box. No fuss. No words. Father didn't argue. They hadn't spoken a single word to me all day. And that was enough for me. In the evening, I checked the boxes. The mail was in my name, but half the envelopes had been opened. Someone had read them. Mother. Probably looking for something important. Or she just didn't think I'd be back. I found a notice of fine unpaid garbage collection. They forgot to pay it. Or they thought it was a small thing. It's a small amount. But it was my address. My account. My responsibility on me again. There were none of my glasses in the kitchen. All put away. Or thrown away. Only the thick cups in which they brewed coffee were left. Bitter, strong, cheap. I opened the cupboard, even the spices weren't mine. Everything had been replaced. I felt disgusted. Not at them. At myself. For letting this happen. Not this month. Before. Years. The next morning they started packing. No questions asked. No words. I watched. Didn't interfere. Just made sure everything was fair. My father took the boxes out. My mother collected the laundry. I checked the cameras. I filmed in real time. No cover-ups. They didn't even have a chance to pretend innocence. Just silence. On the third day, 2 hours before the deadline, they packed the last of their bags. We'll leave the key, my mother said. No need, I replied. It won't come up again. They went out. Calmly. Like it was all part of some script where they didn't even have a second take. I stood in the doorway. Watched the car drive away from the house. without looking back. Then I closed the door. Slowly. No noise. In the kitchen I rearranged everything again. The cups that were left I threw away. Not out of revenge. I just didn't want to touch them. Too much about them wasn't my thing. In the evening the alarm technician arrived. I opened the door for him. He installed the system, hooked up the app. I set the password. A new one. Unchained. No repeats. Just mine. The next day I went to the bank. Changed the cards. Canceled all joint accounts. I updated the paperwork. I renewed my insurance. On myself. At home I pulled the last of the camera files. I kept copies. Not for the court. For me. A reminder of how relationships end when you don't say anything for a long time. When evening came I sat by the window. The light fell on the wooden floor. There was no one there. No voices. No footsteps. Just me. And the house that was mine again. Not by paper, by feeling. They didn't write. They didn't call. They didn't come back. And I wasn't empty. I was at peace. A week later I went into town to get some new furniture. A table, a chair, a plaid. Everything simple, light. No hint of the past. I didn't wash the walls. I didn't repaint. I just added new things. The old no longer needed explaining. A neighbor called. Asked if everything was okay. I said yes. Are your parents gone? Forever, I answered. She was silent. Then she said softly, I'm glad. This house is quiet again. I hung up the phone. I put the kettle on. And as the water boiled, for the first time in a long time I felt not loneliness but air. Just air. I went to the door and checked the lock again. Everything worked perfectly. The new key was lying separately. No fob. No history. Just metal. No last name. I went out into the garden. No phone. No camera. I just went out. And sat down on a bench. For the first time no idea who to warn. Who to cover. Who to give in to. I don't owe anyone anything anymore. This is the climax. Everything you've been waiting for is right here. Subscribe now to see the hero put everyone in their place. A month after they left, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. No one had to know I was home. I stood in the hallway and listened. Once. A second time. Then a short pause. And then the bell rang again. No knock. No voice. I didn't answer. I looked into the camera and there was my mother on the screen. Standing there, head down, hands in her coat. In the background, their old car. The windows down. The driver is the father. He won't get out. I didn't move. After a minute, she pulled out her phone. Texted something. A second later, a beep on mine. We just wanted to talk. 5 minutes. I erased the message. 20 seconds later, the car left. They tried to go back. But not to the house. Into the system. Through pity. Through talk. But I've already learned to recognize it. It's not an attempt to explain yourself. It's a test to see if the old you is still in you, the one that will move. I didn't move anymore. A week later a letter came. Old mail. The envelope was unsigned. Inside was a copy of their garage sale certificate. The amount underlined. No note. No request. Just the amount. A message without words. Look how hard it is for us. Don't you have to? I folded the paper and threw it away. Not in the basket, in the trash can outside. The next day an email arrived. The same address my mother used to send postcards from. First platitudes. Then, we know you want to forget everything. But we're your parents. How can you do this to us? I didn't answer. I didn't change my mind. I just turned off my laptop. They started sending pictures. Old ones. Of me. Family ones. Me in my school uniform. Me from their anniversary. Me serving the cake. They're smiling. Me smiling. The caption under the photo says, Remember. Yeah, I remembered. That's why I didn't call. 2 months later my father called me directly. First I didn't pick up. Then I didn't pick up again. I answered. Not because I wanted to talk. Because I wasn't afraid. Are you happy? Was his first question. Are you? I asked. He was silent. Then he said, We just thought you weren't like that. And you are exactly like that. He wanted something else. But I'd already turned it off. The 3rd month they came again. Together this time. They stood at the gate. Didn't press the bell. Just stood there. 10 minutes. Then they drove off. I watched through the camera. No anger. No relief. I just watched. I didn't participate anymore. Silence became my way of speaking. I didn't delete their numbers. I didn't block their emails. I didn't need to. I just didn't respond anymore. Not inside, outside. I didn't choose revenge. I chose distance. When the fourth time came the message from my mother, "We don't have a place to live. You could." I just moved the notification to the left. Delete. No pain. No hesitation. Just habit. I wasn't violent. I was free. And if that seemed cold to anyone, then they had never stood in the doorway of their own home and felt like everything inside was a stranger. One day I met my father at the grocery store. We exchanged at the canned food shelf. He stopped. I didn't. He said, "Don't you want to know how we are at all?" I looked at him. Stayed silent. He nodded. "I see." And walked on. No shopping. Just his own. I stood there for another minute. Then I took the tomato paste. Not because I had to. Just so I wouldn't stay in the same spot. In the evening a text came. "Thanks for meeting me." I didn't reply. He'd figured it out. 6 months later my mother called my coworker. Via Facebook. She wrote a long letter. About how aloof, abrupt, cold I'd become. My coworker forwarded it. With the comment, "None of my business, but it's weird." I thanked her. I deleted the email. They started going in circles. Complaints, photos, supposed news. All with one goal in mind: to get one hook back. One yes. One response. To start again. But I didn't even give a no anymore. The neighbor said she saw their car in the neighborhood one more time. They drove by. Didn't stop. Just staring out the windows. "Doesn't that scare you?" she asked. "Not anymore," I said. "It's like former shadows. They're there. But they don't touch anymore." I put the vase of lilies by the window. An old habit. From when I was still convinced that beauty saves. Now it's just a sign. The house is mine. The flowers are mine. The silence is mine. Sometimes I watched old videos. Not out of pain. Out of analysis. I wanted to understand. When exactly did they decide they could? That I wouldn't tell? That I wouldn't leave? The answer was simple. Always. They didn't decide. They never asked. Because they knew I'd put up with it. They were used to my silent acquiescence. For a while. And when that time was up, everything fell apart. But not me. They did. Because I was the system. A wall. Without me it crumbles. Now I'm not a wall. Not a pillar. Not a silent daughter. I'm a man with a door. With a lock. With a voice. Even if that voice is silent. On their wedding anniversary I got an invitation. Printed. In the mail. In beautiful gold lettering. "You have always been with us on this day. We hope that won't change." I didn't go. I didn't even open the envelope all the way. I just put it back. Folded it up and put it away in my silence folder. That night I put the kettle on. I put on an old sweater. Locked the door with 2 locks. I sat in a chair. I looked out the window. It was snowing. They did their best to forget. I did my best to remember. Memory is not about pain. It's about boundaries. Where they were broken. And where they are now restored. 9 months after they left, my father called again. His voice was quiet. "We're getting old, Emma. It's hard. I know it is. We don't want to be alone. You weren't alone. You chose to be without me." Silence. Then he said, "We miss you." "Miss who?" "You. The way you were." "She's gone," I said. "You kicked her out when you came into my house." Without knocking. I hung up. Not abruptly. Just like putting a cup on the shelf. They never called again. A year later I got a letter from a real estate agent. Their house was for sale. Mother didn't mention it. My father didn't even mention it. So they sold it quietly. Just like they entered mine in silence. I didn't wonder where they'd gone. I just went on with my life. The next day I bought myself a rocking chair. I put it by the window. I made some herbal tea. And I sat. For a long time. No TV. No phone. Just me. And a house where no one asks to be quieter, gentler, softer. Peace is not the absence of sounds. It's when no voice demands that you become comfortable again. I am just me now. No explanations. No excuses. I didn't break up the family. I got out of it. It's not the same thing. In the spring I stopped remembering the exact dates. When they came. When they left. When I realized everything was broken. Turns out the point isn't where the screaming is. It's where silence becomes the norm. A neighbor asked me, "You don't talk to them at all?" No. What if something happens? I'll find out. Through someone. Or I won't. And that would be okay too. I didn't wait for messages anymore. I didn't check my inbox. No more wondering what if. I no longer lived in a what if they system. Because they were no longer in my system. They existed. Somewhere. In another city. In another context. In someone else's phone. But not here. Not in my house. Not in me. And when I wake up in the morning, I don't think about who needs to give in. I just make myself coffee. Just the way I like it. No sugar. No explanations. No more for the family. Just for me now. And that's enough. One day I discovered that I couldn't remember the intonation of their voices. It wasn't scary. It was liberating. I wasn't looking for oblivion. I simply stopped caring. And in that is my choice. It doesn't require words. It doesn't require affirmation. Just is. Silence. Nothing else.